You ever realize most household injuries start with the phrase, "I saw this on TikTok"? If you think you've seen peak domestic stupidity, trust me, we haven't even plugged in the blender yet. 1. A man once used a vacuum cleaner as a personal grooming device. I wish I were kidding. His logic was simple. If it can suck up dirt, surely it can handle a little body hair. Spoiler alert, it handled too much. He showed up at the ER with a vacuum hose attached in a way that made everyone suddenly wish for amnesia. Apparently, he'd seen it in an old movie, because nothing says reliable like following life advice from 1980s slapstick comedy. The doctor said he was lucky it wasn't one of those models with a turbo function. I say he's lucky the vacuum didn't apply for custody of his remaining dignity. 2. Someone decided to microwave a metal spoon because, and I quote, "it looked cold." Yes, this person looked at solid metal and thought, "needs more heat." The resulting light show could have powered a small rave. Sparks flew, smoke filled the kitchen, and they stood there genuinely shocked, like the laws of physics were supposed to take personal requests. When firefighters arrived, the spoon had fused to the turntable like some postmodern art piece titled "Natural Selection in Stainless Steel." Honestly, I'd hang it in a museum. 3. A woman tried to clean her wedding ring by soaking it in bleach. Then, she added vinegar for extra sparkle. That combination creates chlorine gas, which is great if you're trying to invent home warfare, less great if you'd like to keep your lungs. Her kitchen turned into a World War I reenactment, and she ended up outside gasping for air, holding a ring that still wasn't clean. It's poetic, really. The symbol of eternal love almost ended her eternal life. 4. A dad thought his leaf blower could double as a hairdryer. He fired it up, aimed it at his head, and learned that 200 miles per hour of wind doesn't style hair. It commits assault. His scalp looked like he'd lost a fight with a tornado. And his family? They recorded it. Because if you're going to risk decapitation for beauty, you might as well go viral. 5. Someone decided their toaster could warm socks. As in, they actually stuffed a pair of damp socks into it, hit the lever, and walked away. By the time they came back, their kitchen smelled like burnt polyester and despair. Apparently, they were tired of waiting for the dryer. I can respect efficiency, but not when it involves reinventing arson. 6. A teenager once tried to charge their vape with a USB plugged into a potato. Their reasoning: I saw it work with a light bulb once. True, in science class, where there were wires, electrodes, and supervision. What they achieved instead was a half-baked potato and a vape that died as confused as everyone else. On the bright side, it's the first time a potato has been used for something less intelligent than fries. 7. A man decided to fix a loose doorknob with superglue. Unfortunately, he didn't realize superglue dries faster than regret. His fingers bonded instantly to the knob, trapping him there like a tragic modern art sculpture called DIY Prisoner. He had to call 911 with his nose. The firefighters showed up, pried him free, and left him with both a bill and a nickname, Sticky Ricky. 8. A woman used a blender, not for smoothies, but for mixing hair dye. When she opened the lid, the mixture splattered across the kitchen like a Jackson Pollock painting in magenta. She screamed, the dog barked, and her countertop now looked like it had witnessed a violent strawberry massacre. The end result: uneven hair and a kitchen that will forever smell faintly of regret and ammonia. 9. A man used his wife's iron to make grilled cheese. On the carpet, he said, "It's the same heat, right?" No, it's not. It's 400 degrees of ruin your marriage energy. The sandwich burned, the carpet melted, and the house smelled like charred dairy and despair. Somewhere in the world, a George Foreman grill wept quietly. 10. Someone thought their toilet was a great place to test a waterproof phone case. They dropped it in, flushed for extra pressure, and discovered the phone was not, in fact, waterproof. But it was gone. Their explanation: I thought it would float. Which is exactly what the Titanic thought, too. 11. A college student tried to clean their laptop keyboard with a vacuum hose. It worked perfectly, until the hose sucked up half the keys and their dignity in one go. They showed up to IT support holding a vacuum bag like a ransom demand. "Can you put them back?" they asked. The tech guy just stared, probably calculating whether to laugh or call security. 12. A guy used his electric drill as a cocktail mixer. He duct-taped a spoon to it and went to town. 10 seconds later, his kitchen looked like a tequila-themed crime scene. He blamed this cheap spoon, not the fact that he'd weaponized his power tools for mixology. Honestly, I'm shocked he didn't just pour it directly into the drill battery and call it an energy drink. 13. A woman decided her dishwasher could wash sneakers. To her credit, she was half right. It did wash them, right into oblivion. The rubber soles melted, the shoes fused to the rack, and her dishes came out tasting faintly like gym class. She called it an experiment. I call it the reason Darwin still wins posthumously. 14. Someone used a candle as a room heater. It worked fine for the first hour, until they decided to add 10 more for efficiency. Congratulations, they invented indoor global warming. The smoke detector went off, the curtains caught fire, and their response was to blow on it. Because when you're surrounded by flames, what you really need is more air circulation. 15. A man used his wife's curling iron to press his shirt before a job interview. He was halfway through when the iron melted straight through the fabric, branding his sleeve like a cattle mark. His excuse? It's all heat, isn't it? Yes, and so is hell, which is where his fashion sense currently resides. 16. A woman thought her Roomba could babysit her cat. She turned it on, went to the store, and came back to find both the cat and the Roomba missing. Turns out, the cat had hitched a ride, and the robot vacuumed its way out the dog door. They were found 2 blocks away. The cat traumatized, the Roomba still trying to clean the sidewalk. Somewhere, Skynet took notes. 17. A guy tried to make popcorn using a hair straightener. After 45 minutes of cooking, he had 1 burnt kernel and a broken appliance. He claimed it was for science. Sure, and setting yourself on fire is just testing gravity. The man could have used a microwave, a pot, literally anything else. But no, he wanted to create the world's least efficient snack. Congratulations, you've invented sadness on medium heat. 18. A woman once tried to unclog her toilet using a hand mixer. Apparently, she saw it stir something thick in a cooking video and figured, why not apply that same energy to plumbing? The results were predictable: an explosion of toilet water, porcelain shrapnel, and a mixer that now qualifies as biohazardous waste. She described it to the plumber as an honest mistake. Honest? Sure. Intelligent? About as much as bringing a salad fork to a sword fight. The plumber charged double, not because it was hard, but because it was emotionally difficult to witness that level of innovation. 19. Someone decided to heat their frozen pizza with a clothing iron. Not the kind of Iron Chef anyone asked for. They pressed it down on the counter like they were flattening wrinkles out of mozzarella. 10 minutes later, the cheese was molten, the crust was raw, and their iron smelled like regret for weeks. When asked why they didn't just use an oven, they said it seemed faster. Sure, if your goal was to cook salmonella at medium rare, Gordon Ramsay would have burst through the wall like the Kool-Aid man just to personally confiscate that iron. 20. A man thought his slow-draining sink could be flushed out with a leaf blower. His logic was basically, air moves water, so let's create a hurricane in my plumbing. He duct-taped the nozzle to the drain and let it rip. The result? Every other drain in the house erupted like Old Faithful. The man looked genuinely surprised as toilet water geysered through the shower. That's not a plumbing fix. That's a horror movie directed by Home Depot. He told reporters afterward it kinda worked. Sure, if your goal was to water your bathroom ceiling. 21. A woman cleaned her TV screen with window cleaner while the TV was still on. Sparks flew, smoke curled up, and she stood there watching the static like it was modern art. She later complained that the new flat screens aren't built like they used to be. Yeah, probably because they weren't designed to double as slip and slides for Windex. On the bright side, she did achieve a level of brightness her TV could only dream of, mainly from the electrical fire. 22. Someone once used a butter knife to fix their toaster. It was jammed, and apparently unplugging it first was too advanced a concept. The knife welded itself to the inside, the person screamed, and the toaster launched sparks like it was auditioning for a fireworks show. They survived, but only because dumb luck has a strong moral obligation to protect people like this. The worst part? They complained the toaster was defective. Yes, defective at resisting idiocy. 23. A man used his microwave to dry his wet socks. He threw them in, set it for 2 minutes, and waited proudly. The smell that followed was half polyester, half crime scene. His socks fused together into what looked like a deflated jellyfish. And the microwave? Toasted from the inside out. He called the manufacturer to complain about the flammable environment. I guess it never occurred to him that cotton blend wasn't meant to be a menu item. 24. A woman believed her cat's fur was full of static and decided to spray it with Febreze. She said she just wanted him to smell fresh. Instead, she invented the concept of airborne betrayal. The cat screamed, bolted, and launched itself through a screen door like a furry missile. She had to chase it through the neighborhood, explaining to neighbors why her cat now smelled like a scented car wash. Somewhere, a veterinarian sighed in advance. 25. A guy used his electric toothbrush to scrub the grout in his bathroom. Brilliant idea, until he forgot to swap out the brush head. Later that night, he used it on his teeth, wondering why his mouth tasted like bleach in despair. He said it felt minty but wrong. That's not freshness, my friend. That's Lysol-flavored horror. It's the kind of mistake that makes you both cleaner and dumber at the same time. 26. A woman tried to defrost her frozen turkey with a hairdryer. 3 hours later, the bird was half raw, half scorched, and fully tragic. She said she didn't trust microwaves because they mutate food. Right, because cooking your Thanksgiving dinner with a Revlon wind cannon is definitely the safer choice. When asked if she'd do it again, she said, "Not with that hairdryer." Which implies there will be a sequel. And that's the scariest part. 27. A man decided to clean his keyboard with a can of compressed air. Except he held it upside down. The liquid propellant sprayed across the keys, instantly freezing them into tiny ice sculptures. He panicked, hit a few keys, and watched his computer shut off permanently. It's poetic, really. He wanted his keyboard cleaner. He got a memorial. Instead, he later said it was false advertising. Yeah, because the laws of thermodynamics are clearly a scam. 28. Someone used their blender to make mashed potatoes. The machine screamed like a dying robot before exploding starch all over the ceiling. Apparently, they wanted them extra smooth. Mission accomplished. They became air. The kitchen looked like a cocaine bust, and the blender's motor never recovered. There's a reason grandmas use a masher, not a weapon of culinary destruction. This wasn't mashed potatoes. It was a war crime with butter. 29. A woman decided her clothes would dry faster if she put them in the oven. 10 minutes in, the smell of polyester smoke filled the room, and she realized maybe dryers exist for a reason. She said she just didn't trust appliances with spinning parts. Ma'am, that is what an oven fan does. She melted an entire wardrobe into one very avant-garde lump of regret. Somewhere, Martha Stewart just quietly sighed into a glass of Chardonnay. 30. A guy wanted to test how shock-proof his phone case was, so he threw it into a full bathtub. The case survived. The phone didn't. He then blamed the case company for false advertising. That's not a durability test. That's tech-assisted drowning. He later admitted, "I didn't think water would count as impact." No, but it did count as karma. Congratulations, you proved that waterproof doesn't mean idiot-proof. 31. Someone used their garden hose to siphon gas out of a car. They forgot one small detail. Gravity exists. They ended up drinking half a mouthful of unleaded before spitting it out like an organic energy drink. The ER doctor asked why they did it. The man said, "My uncle used to do it." Yeah, and your uncle probably also smoked inside an oxygen tent. Family tradition doesn't always mean wisdom. It sometimes just means generational stupidity. 32. A woman sprayed bug killer into her air conditioner to clean it. Her logic: if it kills bugs, it must kill germs. The next morning, her entire apartment smelled like an abandoned pesticide factory. She couldn't stop coughing, but she proudly announced, "At least there are no mosquitoes." No, just a slow chemical apocalypse happening in her living room. I've heard of deep cleaning, but this is deep respiratory damage. 33. A man thought the best way to clean his garbage disposal was to pour in a cup of Drano and then drop in some baking soda for fizz. What he created was an actual chemical reaction powerful enough to foam halfway up his sink and bleach his countertop. He called it satisfying. That's one word for it. Accidental meth lab would be another. Honestly, he's lucky he didn't end up with a sink that screams. 34. Someone used a garden rake as a back scratcher. Because why settle for comfort when you can have tetanus? They dragged it across their shoulders like they were tilling soil, only to end up at urgent care looking like they'd wrestled a porcupine. The nurse asked how it happened. They said, "It just seemed easier than finding the wooden one." Ah yes, efficiency. Humanity's favorite excuse right before natural selection steps in with a clipboard. 35. A man once decided to paint his living room using his lawn sprayer. He said it would save time. And it did, if you don't count the 6 hours he spent afterward cleaning blue paint off everything he owned, including his dog. The man stood in the center of his self-made apocalypse, proudly insisting it was modern art. It looked like Picasso met a pressure washer. When his wife came home, she just said, "You're paying for this." He said, "With what?" Because the sprayer had also painted his wallet to the table. Efficiency really is the enemy of intelligence. 36. A woman once tried to make her own DIY humidifier by placing a pot of boiling water on top of her space heater. The result? The world's shortest-lived science experiment. The pot melted into the coils, the heater exploded, and she stood there shocked, as if basic physics should have sent her a courtesy text. She told firefighters she just wanted a spa experience. Congratulations, you got one. Fire, steam, panic, and a bill that'll make your eyes water harder than any essential oil ever could. 37. Someone used their dishwasher to cook a salmon. They said it was eco-friendly steam cooking. The house smelled like a fish cannery for 3 weeks. And the kicker? They actually ate it. Apparently, it tasted fine, which is also what people say right before a food poisoning documentary begins. When their friends refused to try it, they called them close-minded. No, they're just sane. Cooking in the same machine that washes forks is the culinary equivalent of drinking from your own bathwater because it's efficient hydration. 38. A guy decided his dull knife needed sharpening, so he ran it through his paper shredder. He said, "It's blades against blades, it'll work." It did not. The shredder jammed, sparked, and made a sound like Satan trying to chew tin foil. The knife came out looking like it had survived a car crash, and his countertop looked like a scrapyard. He told his girlfriend it just needs calibration. No, man, you just invented a $99 fire hazard and called it innovation. 39. A woman thought she could steam clean her mattress by pouring boiling water directly onto it. She said she wanted to kill germs naturally. She also killed her sleep schedule, her bed frame, and her hope for ever getting a security deposit back. The foam absorbed the water like a sponge from hell, trapping moisture for weeks. She posted online asking how to fix it, and people told her to just move. It was the first time Reddit gave correct medical advice. 40. A man used his pressure cooker as a deep fryer. He said he wanted crispier chicken. What he got instead was a kitchen that looked like a Michael Bay movie set. The lid blew clean off, oil hit the ceiling, and his eyebrows achieved orbit. He later told reporters he didn't read the warning label because those are for amateurs. That's right, only professionals. Risk becoming urban legends for the sake of poultry. 41. Someone tried to charge their phone in the oven. Their reasoning: it's a warm, enclosed space, just like a charger. They preheated it to 200 degrees and walked away. The phone melted into what looked like a tech-inspired candle, and their kitchen smelled like burning capitalism. When asked why, they said, "My USB cable was too short." I think it's fair to say their brain cable wasn't much longer. 42. A man tried to fix a jammed garbage disposal using his bare hand. He said, "It's unplugged, it's fine." It wasn't. Turns out his roommate had just flipped the wrong switch earlier. The light was unplugged. The disposal turned on, the man screamed, and the neighbors thought someone was being murdered by a blender. He lost a finger and gained a lifetime membership in the Darwin Awards Hall of Fame. 43. A woman tried to make her old perfume last longer by topping it off with vodka. She said it smelled cleaner. It also smelled like she'd been pre-gaming a traffic stop. Her coworkers started asking if she was okay, which is HR language for, "Why does your cubicle smell like a Moscow nightclub?" She insisted it was eco-conscious fragrance mixing. Yeah, nothing says sustainability like showing up to work smelling like regret and hangovers. 44. Someone used a candle to check if their gas stove was leaking. That's not a test, that's a confession. The entire kitchen went up faster than their Wi-Fi bill. When firefighters arrived, the guy said, "At least now I know it was leaking." Technically correct, which is the most dangerous kind of correct. It's hard to admire human curiosity when it's actively auditioning for the next boom sound on YouTube compilations. 45. A guy duct-taped knives to his Roomba for Halloween. Because what's better than a small, autonomous blade machine patrolling your house? He even called it R2 to kill. It got stuck under the couch and shredded half his carpet before dying heroically next to a charging cable it mistook for prey. He posted the video online and captioned it, "Minor setback." Somewhere, Isaac Asimov just rolled over in his grave, screaming, "This is why I wrote rules." 46. A woman once microwaved her credit card to kill the chip. She didn't want banks tracking her, but somehow thought electromagnetic radiation was less invasive than data collection. The chip melted, the card fused to the plate, and she called her bank to complain that it caught fire too easily. Honestly, she's right. I also think MasterCard should start offering a conspiracy theorist-proof tier for these special cases. 47. A man thought his humidifier wasn't misting enough, so he poured in essential oils. Within an hour, the machine was dead. The air smelled like burnt lavender, and the walls looked like an aromatherapy crime scene. He said it was worth it for the vibe. Sure, if the vibe you're going for is spa-themed chemical fire. His girlfriend said it reminded her of the forest. Yeah, the part after the wildfire. 48. A teenager wanted to test if you could bake cookies using a hair straightener. You can't. But you can burn fingerprints clean off your hand trying. He managed to make one half-cooked cookie that looked like a crime scene souvenir and tasted like melted plastic. His mom found him in the kitchen yelling, "It's working!" as the smoke alarm went off. It wasn't working. But hey, at least now he can commit crimes with no prints. 49. Someone used their iron to make pancakes. They said it was creative cooking for minimalists. The batter oozed out, the iron glued shut, and the kitchen smelled like breakfast and industrial failure. They called it innovative. Yeah, because nothing screams progress like setting a $40 appliance on fire to save 5 minutes. Even the smoke alarm was like, "Nope, I'm sitting this one out." 50. A guy once tried to unfreeze his car door by pouring boiling water down the handle. It worked for 5 glorious seconds. Then the water refroze instantly, sealing his car in an even thicker block of ice. He said, "It's fine, I'll try again tomorrow." Buddy, at this point, you don't own a car, you own a very expensive popsicle. He probably stood there, staring at it like he just outsmarted nature, while nature whispered, "You sweet, clueless idiot." 51. And finally, the crown jewel of household stupidity. A man once used a stapler to reattach a cut on his hand because he saw it on TV. He said, "It looked clean enough." It wasn't. He ended up at the hospital explaining why his palm looked like a Home Depot return item. The doctor asked if he'd considered bandages. He said, didn't have any. But he did have a stapler. That's humanity in a nutshell. Infinite access to better options, and we still pick the one that hurts the most. If you're wondering how we've made it this far as a species, honestly, so am I. And there you have it. Absolute proof that humans will turn any object within arm's reach into a weapon, a tool, or a lawsuit. Like, subscribe, and join me for the next episode of How Are We Still Alive?